right. Welcome to Powerhouse Podcast here. I am with yet another powerhouse. This is my very good friend, Stu, who is a corrective strength specialist who has worked with the NHL, the NFL, pro surfing, pro snowboarding, and someone who I've now known since 2016, I believe, when he started working with me. So first and foremost, Stu, welcome to the Powerhouse Podcast.
Thanks for having me, big fella.
Well, a quick origin story on Stu. I usually start with origin stories as to how I know some of the folks that come on here. I met Stu in 2016. I was just received my blue belt and in the process of getting promoted. It was customary for all the black belts and brown belts to kind of beat up all the people who were getting promoted. And in that process, I got choked quite a few different times in a 30 to 45 minute session. And I started with a bad neck, and the neck turned into tingling of the fingers and the elbow and the shoulder. And it got to a point where for about 3 to 5 months, I couldn't even do any strength stuff with my right hand. I could lift 75 to 80 pounds on this side, but I couldn't do anything on this side at all. And I went to a doctor, a neck doctor, a back doctor, a nerve doctor, a chiropractor. I had an MRI done. I had x-rays done, and nobody could figure out what was wrong with me. And it was really starting to hurt me where I couldn't shake someone's hand for a business meeting. I wasn't writing with my strong hand or my writing hand because I couldn't control the pen. I couldn't grip it. And then somebody, and I believe it was a back doctor in Santa Marita, Southern California, introduced me and said, "Hey, listen, we can't figure out what's wrong with you, but you might want to take a shot with this guy named Stu. He works with these pro athletes." So I went up to Huntington Beach one day, and you did your test and started working with me a little bit. And just in the process of a 45-minute session with you, I could feel differently. So I think I went 3 times a week for the first couple of weeks, and then it was night and day. I mean, I actually started getting strength back pretty quickly. I'll let you say what it is I had. I think it was a form of thoracic outlet syndrome, but to a degree that I think you told me you hadn't seen before at that level. And then just for fun and because we became friends and to stay healthy, we continued to work until, of course, 2018 when I moved to Texas. And since then, you've helped me with not only recalibrating myself from afar. As recently as this past weekend, I was in California and you came to the hotel and started working with me a little bit, but also from a nutrition standpoint, which I want to cover because I think that's important too. And you've really helped fine tune my nutrition, what to take, what not to take, what supplements to take, what to avoid. So anyway, that's kind of our backstory. Am I missing anything? Or you want to plug in the blanks anywhere there, Stu?
No, mate, you pretty much covered it all. That was, you had a nerve impingement and thoracic outlet syndrome at that time.
So what is it that you did that all the other doctors and specialists couldn't do or didn't do? How did you find it so quickly? And how often do you come across someone with that kind of nerve impingement?
Well, so we just looked at the entire system rather than compartmentalizing it. It's really that simple. So, you saw we did some core training, right?
Right.
So we're trying to get the ribs and pelvis to change their relationship, because that's what your head sits on. Your head sits on your cervical spine. So that's what we did to free up that nerve outlet.
So I notice, that you've worked with surfers, snowboarders, a lot of side stuff, right? And that's kind of what I had. One side was broken, the other side was fine. Is that kind of your specialty, or is that just kind of what you're running into?
Yeah, that's the specialty, and it's because it produces certain types of problems, right? Because it's asymmetrical, so it can perpetuate, as an example, one hip flex will be tight, but on the other side, it's an external rotator or glute that's tight. So it's a twist pattern issue rather than becomes a global issue. And then you're rolling the dice. You're increasing risk of something being asked to do more than it's designed to do in the body, and therefore you end up with an injury.
So how often are you working with patients, or I don't know if you call them patients, but how often are you working with folks who are injured and you're trying to help them, and kind of what is that process? Does it ever end, or should it always be continuous so they can make sure they don't have a nerve relapse? Hey, thanks for watching the Powerhouse Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Now back to the show.
Well, you're always looking at mechanics. So if you obey optimal human mechanics, you lower it's all about probabilities. There's no guarantees either way, but you want to optimize human mechanics so you bring the probability or the risk of injury as far down as you can. And that really should be in the back of your mind when you train all the time.
So it's been now 6 years almost since we've been apart. And I still do a lot of the stuff that you had me do, from the medicine balls to the side training, the stretches, and all the other stuff. What, when we can't see each other and I can't physically be, because it's brutal, the stuff you did to me this weekend. I mean, you saw the pain I'm in. I mean, sometimes that's more painful than the actual jiu-jitsu training that I do. How do I replicate that from afar? How does one replicate that from afar? Do you have videos and whatnot that you show?
Yeah, you have to, especially that DNS stuff that I did with you. It's you have to video it because the patient or the client has no. It's very difficult even for trainers when they do those courses to remember that stuff without video. So yeah, you have to video everything. But really, I think at least a decent chunk of this profession should be about knowledge transfer. You should be trying to teach the clients how to be somewhat self-sufficient. Not, like imagine if you, Dan, go to Italy. You don't want to feel helpless, right? You want to know that you have a few tools to deal with something. And, a lot of the young PTs coming out of university now with doctorates, the lion's share of the remedies come from movement and strength training, not as much the hands-on stuff anymore. That they still do that, but it's the majority of the fix comes from the right type of conditioning and strength training.
So do you ever work with golfers too?
Efficient.
I know golfers are one-sided. Do you work with golfers too?
No, they just haven't come my way. Basically, that's not because I have any reason not to. I just haven't had any sent my way.
So, how long have you been a corrective strength specialist, and what was your background? How did you get into it?
Well, in New Zealand, we have the option to do physical education theory from 15 years old. So in high school, 15, 16, 17, we actually did that as part of the qualifications for passing high school. Some people do the sciences, so that's an option for us, which is really cool. And then when I went to university, I actually started a business degree, but I was working training people at that time for money, and ended up deciding to tack on sports science as well because I was already at university. So, but I already had I had the first year cross credit from high school, so the first year was basically done. So
right.
It was a no-brainer. And then, but honestly, 50% of what I know I've learned since university, to be honest.
When did you come to the States?
2007.
Okay. All right, cool. And you've had
2007.
When I used to go see you, not only did you have a laundry list of clients that, you had to squeeze me in, but you also were doing personal training classes as well. And I know you've done nutrition classes or nutrition education. How busy are you?
Usually do about 60 hours a week of just 50 to 60 hours a week of training, just depends on the week. At that time too, we were running the businesses. So I think we had anywhere between 4 and 6 boutique little locations around Orange County.
Right.
We actually had one up in LA as well. So, and we had trainers working under us. But right now I just focus on the private stuff. It's easier to manage and for the family and all that. So usually do about 50 to 60 hours a week of that.
So when we met, you were married, but you had no kids. What's changed since then?
We got 1 3-year-old and another one on the way. So a young boy and then another boy on the way. So
awesome.
My time will be evaporating.
Congratulations. Yeah, that's awesome. And your wife,
thanks, mate.
Your wife is also athletic. I mean, back to your athletic. You were a rugby player for New Zealand, right?
No, not for New Zealand. No, it wasn't. That would be like playing in the NFL. So,
but you played rugby.
I didn't play for New Zealand,
right?
Yeah, I played. The level would have been probably first division college football level, I would say.
Okay, cool.
Approximate, and then played cricket again to probably a college baseball level. So in New Zealand, we play rugby and cricket. Over here, you play football and baseball.
That's right. Yeah.
Now,
your wife is a professional. She's a dancer, right? But what kind of dancer is that?
You have to answer this carefully, eh?
I know, right?
No, she's a professional Latin American ballroom dancer. She was a judge on Dancing with the Stars in New Zealand.
That's right, ballroom. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, so she's been a judge in the Dancing with the Stars franchise. So yeah, she's very athletic.
That's awesome. Your kid's going to be athletic too?
Mate, I don't have any control over that. I would hope so.
Wow, you have some control. Half of the genetics are yours, I think. Is that how it works?
I just threw the ingredients in the bowl, mate. We'll see how they turn out.
That's awesome. So I have actually, helped a lot of people, and I'm certainly not an expert. I don't have your background, but I know how broken I was in 2016, and then I know how I feel now. So I've been able to just share with people from a non-scientific level some of the things that you've taught me, from workout schedules, the breathing schedules. I mean, the breathing patterns, the lifting patterns. I still have all the spreadsheets where 5 seconds down and then 3 seconds up, and then we switch it the next week. So I've helped a lot of people with that, but I can't get out of my Instagram feed. Every single time I'm on Instagram, there is an Instagram influencer who is sharing their knowledge of how to, lose 10 pounds in 4 days, how to gain 60 pounds of muscles in a week, all the stuff. I have to imagine, and I don't want to speak for you, but you have to sometimes just kind of laugh a little bit, right? I mean, you have an actual background, and this is what you do. How much of that stuff on Instagram, without calling anybody out, is real? And what separates them and their million followers, of course, from some of the stuff that you do and some of the stuff you teach?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. What makes a good influencer doesn't necessarily make a good practitioner. What makes a good practitioner generally doesn't make a good influencer.
Right.
So there are different incentive structures and different skill sets, but there's a couple of things that, well, first of all, you should always be evidence-based as best you can be. And that comes from both official research and then, experience doing the job and seeing what works, what doesn't. But, we have so much data now coming out of the universities. There's so much information that's been back-tested that, first of all, you need to rely on that. The other thing is, when it comes to training and nutrition, you need to ask yourself, well, what am I actually trying to achieve here? If I do this, what is the risk and what is the reward? Potential risk, potential reward, right?
Right.
So, for example, you go into a gym and see someone that's 100 pounds overweight, has been training 2 weeks trying to squat 400 pounds. Well, it's a huge amount of risk in that. Forget that they're not conditioned for it. There's not a lot of reward because it's not really going to help you shed that 100 pounds you're overweight. There's other things that would be better that have much lower risk. So that's the mistake you see quite often is there's no thought of risk reward. There's no thought of what am I trying to achieve and what's the best and safest way to get there. And then, things need to be evidence-based, especially with supplements, because most of what's on the market doesn't work.
So tell me about that. What is out there in the market that doesn't work, and what are some of the basics that you would recommend anyone who has any level of physical aspirations to just be healthier?
A basic multivitamin. Magnesium at night is a no-brainer for me because you can't really overdose on it. It just basically gives you the shits if you do.
Yeah. I still do the magnesium every night. I don't know what it does, but you told me to do it, and I still have this giant bottle of magnesium that I use every night before I go to bed.
Well, it's perfect for someone like you because you're so high octane that it calms the sympathetic nervous system. So it's good for keeping you in nervous system balance, keeping your autonomic nervous system in balance, so the balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic. So, in other words, helps deal with stress a little bit, helps you sleep, which also helps deal with stress because you can't sleep. Basically, sleep quality is linked to all health parameters bar none. If you sleep well and regularly and enough, you will be healthy and you'll have a lower chance of getting sick, or a higher chance of being healthy, a lower chance of getting sick, and then the converse is true. If you sleep poorly, you have a higher risk of getting sick, higher risk of lower life quality. So anything that helps sleep or helps stop stress getting in the way of sleep is a no-brainer. So that's why magnesium's a no-brainer. Hard to overdose on unless you're really stupid with it. Basic multi, creatine is a very underrated supplement. Like people just think it's a meathead muscle supplement. It's got a lot of other benefits like to the brain, etc.
So I use creatine, but I converted recently to the gummies simply because I do so much powder stuff anyway that it was just getting too monotonous. And with my travel schedule, I went to the gummies. Any difference? Is creatine no matter what?
I don't know, actually, mate. I can't answer that. I don't know. Never heard of creatine gummies.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll talk about
I can't imagine it's
I'll show you what I use later.
Yeah,
but it's just easier to travel with creatine in a gummy form. They're like little gummy bears.
I don't really see how you would screw it up putting in a gummy, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah. So
what about greens?
That's kind of what you're looking at.
Athletic greens, whether it's in pill form or in the powder form. How are the greens?
Yeah, they're great. They're great. Athletic Greens makes a great product. They're Kiwis too, so I've got to give them a little double pat on the back.
All right, cool.
No, they make a good product. It's very well thought out, and it's easy. It's sort of got pretty much everything you need in it. And for a lot of people that are busy like you, that's what's important. You take it with you when you travel. You know, that's the other thing is like if it's hard to implement, it's not really going to help anyone. So, it's most things in this industry, like people make it sound complicated because that sells for clicks or they're trying to sell you some miracle potion or whatever. But the most important thing is consistency and keeping it relatively simple. Most solutions are more simple than complicated. And then someone like you, the reason why you had so much success getting better is you're coachable and you have the right mindset and you're consistent. And you don't quit until you get the job done. So that's why you got better so fast. It wasn't just what I was telling you; it was what I was working with.
You gave me 15 to 20 videos a week, and you told me 25 different things to do. I followed all of them except for one. You remember which one I never followed?
No, I don't.
You told me I have to take a rest day.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's the only thing I
honestly,
do.
To be fair. Well, when I was a bit younger too, like to be fair, I actually probably gave you too much stuff because it makes it hard to master. It just so happens that you're capable of mastering a little bit more than your average person. So it worked. But these days I try and keep it even more simple, just 3 or 4 things at a time per week, have the client master it and then move on and just keep adding to it.
So since we're doing the simplified version of stuff, the simplified version of supplements is creatine is good, magnesium is great at night before you go to bed, and a multivitamin and greens are good. So if we kept it simple, that's good. You're in agreement with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I live in California, so like I get plenty of sun. I don't really take too much vitamin D anymore, except in winter. I take a little bit in winter because I don't get that much sun in winter. That has a decent amount of research behind it.
You said vitamin
fish
D?
oil I take.
Is that what you said, vitamin D?
Yeah, I take vitamin D, yeah. I take a little bit of fish oil.
Okay.
There's a supplement called berberine that has some benefits for certain people. I used to take that for a while, but I work out so much now I don't really need to, but it helps with blood sugar control. So I used to eat really big meals at night because it's just my work schedule. So I take it just to stop the blood sugar spike at night interfering with my sleep, and it worked really well. On my Oura ring, my average heart rate would be about 2 or 3 beats lower when I took it, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
It's not an advertised benefit of it, but that's just what happens. So.
All right. So that's the nutritional side. Now, for your average person, which your average person probably has a few pounds they would like to lose. Whether or not they want to gain muscle out of it, it's not everyone's goal. But I think just about every American out there says I'd like to be in a little bit better condition. So for the average person, what do you recommend from a physical conditioning standpoint, whether it's cardio work or we'll get to food stuff later, but from a physical standpoint, what do you suggest as a way to kind of lose a couple lbs?
It's easy, mate. Don't overeat calories and train consistently. So 3 strength training sessions and 2 or 3 cardio at about 40 minutes each, and you're good. Keep it simple. Work hard, but work to your limits. Don't do shit that you can't.
Right. Okay.
that you can't handle without getting injured. So keep it simple, keep it sensible, be consistent. That's it.
And then from a dietary standpoint, you hear sometimes stay away from carbs. Some people say carbs are great. Some people say not too much protein, and some people like me only, for the most part, eat protein. You're your average person who's just trying to get in a little bit better shape. What would you say?
There's 1,000 different diets that will work for people. They all do one thing: they make you eat less calories than you burn. So if you go keto, there's nothing magical about it. People in ketosis tend to stay under their calorie budget. Vegan, same thing. There are a few things that the research would suggest are immutable. So the research suggests that you should get 30 grams of fiber per day, preferably from food. That's correlated with a 1% inverse. There's a 1% inverse correlation to all causes of disease for every gram of fiber up to 30 grams you eat per day. So if Dan eats 30 grams of fiber, Stu eats 0, Dan has a 30% lower chance of dying of anything than Stu does.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay.
Okay. Now, the other thing, if you get it from food, the foods that are high in fiber also tend to be relatively calorie poor and very high in nutrients. So from a displacement perspective, you're going to have a better chance of not eating too many calories, and you're going to get all your nutrients that you need. So that's why that one's a no-brainer. That was the first one I throw at people. Get 30 grams of fiber from food per day. No-brainer. If you're not doing intermittent fasting and eating 2 meals a day, if you're eating sort of normally, like 3-4 meals a day, you want to get 20 to 30 grams of protein, depending on your body weight, per meal. That's essential for multiple things. Proteins tends to be a little bit more metabolically active. So it tends to help your metabolism a little bit. It's essential for muscle repair and growth, which is good for body composition. And yeah, that's the second no-brainer. 20 to 30 grams of protein, at least 2 times a day, preferably 3 or 4. Again, depends on your size. If you're a 100-pound female, then 90 grams of protein is quite a lot. Unless she's trying to put on, a lot of muscle, then that would be different. So just if you're talking about the average person, though,
yep.
Trying to gain a little bit of muscle, 20 to 30 grams of protein 3 times a day would be great.
How about interval training? You like that? Because I think that's pretty much most of the cardio I do. I do the 20-second sprint, 10-second rest. I do that for about 45 minutes, and I do it about 7 days a week. But that's like as intense as you can get. What do you recommend for most folks? I mean, is jogging or walking the dog good?
All cardio is great. There's a myth out there that there's a lot of people putting out bullshit that steady state cardio doesn't burn fat, which is a bunch of garbage. It's absolute rubbish. That's one of the biggest myths out there, actually, if you want to touch on a myth.
Explain that. Steady state cardio. Explain that to people. What is steady state cardio?
Well, there's been a lot of, so that's like going for a run at, let's say, 60% of max heart rate. So you go out for a run, 30, 40 minutes, steady state, 60% of max heart rate, somewhere around there. So just medium intensity, long duration, like 30, 40 minutes.
A good jog.
The type of hit stuff that you do is like eye bleeding intensity for 20 seconds, rest for 20. It's going to be a shorter workout. It's going to be in that 8 to 10 minute range, right? There's a bunch of studies, like the Tabata study, that whole thing is, the word Tabata comes from that study, but they compared very intense short workouts to long steady state workouts, and the results are pretty similar. And what they attributed that to was increase in metabolism over the 48 hours after the workout.
Right.
But either one will work. It depends what adaptations you need out of it too. Like if you need more lactate tolerance, then you need to be doing the higher intensity stuff. If you don't need the lactate tolerance, you just need to lose some fat, and you prefer to go steady state, and that's fine as well. You don't see fat marathon runners.
Of course, yeah.
So this idea that steady state doesn't burn fat is just stupid. If you burn,
that's all they do too. They just jog for 20 hours a day.
Yeah, the issue is they lose muscle mass. That's their body composition is not quite as good as like sprinters, because sprinters are creating way more force. When you sprint, you're creating a monstrous amount of force off the ground, which builds density and bone and muscle density and muscle mass. So
Okay.
But, yeah.
And before we recap here, help me. A lot of my friends that watch this, they train jiu-jitsu, which I know you do too, right?
Yep.
And a lot of them actually compete. So I've been struggling here the past couple of years. I'm not consistent enough because I never found exactly what I want. The day of training or of a competition, it's likely a day I can barely eat because I got to make sure I make weight. So long as I'm at my division. If I'm in the open class where there's no weight, it's really not an issue. But I noticed in my last few tournaments, I take a pre-workout. As soon as I weigh in, I have about 20 minutes before I can actually fight. So I'll do a quick fiber, or I'll do one of these quick little gel packs of like carbs, almond butter, something that isn't going to fill me up, but it's at least putting energy in my system. I notice when I do a pre-workout, I don't really feel the high, but I think in the middle of the tournament, I gas out pretty darn quickly. I wonder if maybe the pre-workout is getting my heart rate elevated high, and because I'm in fight mode, I'm already high. I'm wondering if I'm getting too high. Because the last couple of fights I've done, I've been exhausted, and I know it's not a cardio thing. And then my arms, I get the lactic acid build up, and then I can't feel my arms in between the fights and stuff like that. What do you recommend ideally before a competition? You've got 10 minutes after you weigh in and before you fight. Take a banana, what do you say?
Well, if we look at you, the trouble is you compete in two different sort of weight classes. You know what I've given you shit about for years, right?
Yeah.
Is fight, because in jiu-jitsu you weigh in, like you said, 10 minutes before, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like the UFC where you can cut weight the night before, weigh in.
That's right.
Yeah, and so the rule of thumb in physiology, and there's argument over this, but it's in the vicinity of 1 to 2% dehydration equals 10% performance loss. There's argument over whether it's 1 to 2, but let's just say it's 1 to 2% dehydration, 10% performance loss, right? So a guy like you should really be weighing in at your natural weight, which means you can feed yourself. So the reason why I think you're blowing out is you're running out of energy. You're having to starve yourself. You're dehydrated slightly, probably.
That's probably. Yeah. I'm
just
not
by not having
water
enough.
because I just need to make weight, and I drink water right before
so
it's too late.
You're most likely dehydrated and undercalorized. It's that simple.
Okay.
So, things like creatine right before can't help you because creatine has to build up in your system to work. So you get the maximum benefit out of creatine after about 8 to 12 weeks of taking it.
Okay.
It's got to be saturating your cells with you maximally loading your phosphocreatine stores.
Would electrolytes help? Is that pretty good in between? Even in between fights, right? You get 10 minutes in between a fight. Electrolytes, is that better than regular water? A banana?
Actually, I'm glad you bring that up. Electrolytes are, yes, because electrolytes dictate the ability to actually hold the water in the cells, right? So that's what happens when you cut a UFC fighter. That hyperhydration they're doing, they're actually just taking all the electrolytes out of the body, so that the body you just piss all your water out.
Okay.
But the thing that this goes under the radar a little bit. A lot of people don't know about this, and there's a little bit of argument about the exact number here, but a 3% to 5% carbohydrate solution will hydrate you better than water alone. Okay, so if you've got 100 mils of water per 100 mils, you want 3 to 5 grams of sugar in there, glucose, whatever, and that works out to be about between a third of a cup and a half a cup. Probably I would lean closer to a third, just sit around that 3% mark of fruit juice, and the rest water. That's going to give you that about 3 to 5% solution between a third and a half a cup.
Okay.
So most fruit juices run about 6 grams of sugar per 100 mils.
Awesome. Okay, so get good sleep, magnesium at night, multivitamins, do cardio, lift weights, don't overtrain. I mean, that's just the generic stuff. I know when I see you and when your clients see you, you go very specific. In fact, one of our mutual good friends calls you the wizard, because you just make it into a science. But I mean, that's pretty much it. And then somewhere there, 30 grams of fiber a day is ideal, right? I take 30 grams of fiber, you take none. I'm healthier than you are.
Yes, from food if possible, because that it becomes a self-setting mechanism. If you're eating 30 grams of fiber from food, you're filling your gut with things that doesn't leave any room for any garbage, right?
Right.
But if you're not getting that, then at least taking something like psyllium husk is worth doing. psyllium fiber. So, but you should shoot to do it from nutrition, because you'll get, like I said, it becomes a self-fulfilling mechanism where people just tend to start losing weight because fiber is very satiating. Like if you look at this massive craze in Ozempic right now, which is a GLP-1 mimetic. And to be fair, when your liver releases GLP-1, it's short. It's only, for a couple of minutes at a time, where that drug stays in your system for 6 hours. So not really comparable. But the point is eating a lot of fiber also makes your liver release GLP-1. So for someone that's obese, I'm not saying you should just eat a bunch of fiber and don't worry about the GLP-1. If you're really heavy, then it's better to eat weight down. It's better for your health. But for the rest of us that just want to be healthy, fiber is very satiating because of that. Multiple things, but that's one of them, is that GLP-1 response.
Okay. And I just thought of one more for fighters as well. I got a lot of buddies who's just spent, before the week of the fight, they spent hours and hours in the sauna to sweat out a lot of stuff. And I have a sauna too, and I'll spend 15, 20 minutes a day in it. But I prefer personally to sweat it out running outside or running on a treadmill, because it's still at least helping my cardio, and I'm sweating it out that way versus sitting in a box. Is one better than the other?
For what purpose, I guess?
For weight cutters, right? We're all 225. We've got to get to 218. We have 7 days to do it. Some people just sit there in sweat boxes all day, and I prefer to just sweat it out doing actual cardio and lifting weights and making a workout out of it. And
for that purpose, yeah, the exercise is absolutely going to be better because you're going to burn more calories.
Yeah. Okay. Than just sitting there.
Yeah, but I mean, again, all you guys out there that are fighters, get your weight down to the right weight. What you'll gain in, well, first of all, you're weighing in 10 minutes for the fight, so I don't even know if you can get enough usable weight back on anyway.
Yeah. But
you should be fighting at your real weight, getting your weight down and keeping it there, and don't let it jump around. It's like letting your weight jump around is you're just adding all this variability to your function. The human body is geared to maintain homeostasis, which means maintain equilibrium. That comes down to our sleep cycles, everything, right? We like consistent routine. The human body functions best on that. So, and that includes keeping your weight level. If you fight at 220, you're going to be 218 with a gi, right? So
17.
You should be 218.
Yep.
Yeah, don't let your body go over 218 at any time. Keep it there, and then you can be fully fueled, fully hydrated for your fight and perform at your optimal. That extra 2 pounds of fat or muscle that you think you might be able to lay on someone with is useless when you compare it to a 10% potential performance loss from being dehydrated.
Well, I spent the weekend in California, so I came home 2 days ago at 227. Today I'm 219, so I can't be the healthiest thing in the world. I still have another 2 pounds to lose, but I got time now. I have 72 hours. What do you have your Instagram handle? I'm going to put it at the bottom so people can reach you if they want to, and they can learn more about you. But do you have it off the top of your head?
Yeah, it's Kiwi, so like kiwi fruit, Kiwi, and kilos, as in not pounds, and that's it. Kiwi and kilos.
That's your handle.
So yeah, people can go and check on there. I'm not a big Instagram guy. I don't really put much effort into it, but you can go on there and see sort of the weird stuff we do with the athletes and that. It's a bit different. So it'll give you some ideas about how we think about things.
Awesome. Well, listen, I assume everyone's going to appreciate just some of these tips that you're sharing, and if they want more, they can go to you directly. But as we've talked about, since 2016, man, I thought there was a certain time I would never be able to move my arm again. I mean, 3 to 5 months of not knowing where you're going to be from half your body, and then now, obviously spending the time I have with you, I got to thank you, man. You've actually changed my life, and I really appreciate it, and I appreciate your time being out here as well.
No, it's been a pleasure, mate. That's one of the benefits of this job, is you get to meet good buggers like you. So lifelong mates.
Listen, you're right, lifelong mates, and congratulations on your soon-to-be second baby that's about to be born. And I will keep you posted here in the next couple days how I'm doing, and then we'll talk soon, man. I really appreciate you, Stu.
Thanks, brother. You too, mate. We'll see you soon.
All right, Stu White, everyone. Thank you, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Ciao, brother.
Hey, thanks for watching. Quick word from our sponsors. If you're looking to purchase a new home or refinance your existing home, there's no better place than Neighborhood Loans. Please call Jessica Nieto at the number below, and she'll take care of you. Thanks.